Welcome to the Unknown Webcast. This is just a bit of a trigger warning for those who believe words are more injurious than sticks and stones. I really am so conservative, I can't turn left even when I'm driving. In addition to giving trigger warnings to our viewers, Ron Hensel and I both drink coffee for your protection. This week, Chris joins us to talk about being invaded by Asian cults. My name is Don Vino. I'm president of Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. in Wonder Lake, Illinois, which produces the Unknown Webcast. Our senior researcher is Ron Hensel, and we'll introduce the sponsors of today's webcast. And if I can track him down, here is Ronnie Baby.
You had to track me down. Where did I go?
Well, you disappeared to the bottom hinterlands of my screen.
Okay. Well, greetings from sunny Florida, where the palm tree came out, saw its shadow. And now we have 12 more months of summer. Our sponsor for this edition of the Unknown Webcast is the Designer Jesus Collection. No more need your Jesus be a source of social embarrassment. Check out the latest styles at the Designer Jesus Collection. Our regular legal disclaimer, our guest on today's webcast, insert name here, that would be Chris. That's all I was given here by the producers, has no connection whatsoever to any of the satirical content of the Unknown Webcast, here to refer to as the webcast, although we probably will not mention it again. This satirical content includes any and all commercials, end credits, puns, smart remarks, or anything else that might fall under the definition of satire. In the meantime, Midwest Christian Outreach Inc. bears no liability for or responsibility for anyone's opinions regarding this satirical content. Notice, the opinions expressed on this webcast are ours and should be yours too. If you enjoy it or if it really annoys you and you want to inflict it on someone else to ensure your continued access, please go to midwestoutreach.org, click the yellow donate button, and contribute as you feel led. And as you do, never fear, this webcast is Y2K compliant. And don't forget to subscribe to us on your favorite video channels. And now our very special guest, Chris. I'm so excited to see you.
You guys really thought this through.
What's that?
Man, I'm actually kind of impressed. You guys thought this through.
Yeah, we've given it so much thought. It's not as much thought as I give to lunch, but you know.
Hey, valid.
So, Chris, is this like Cher or Liberace? You just go by Chris?
Yeah, my name is Chris. I'm from the greater Seattle area, and I've been on your podcast before as well. And I got to do a talk with Emner. That's how I met Don. And for the last few years, I've been raising awareness, particularly on Shincheonji, but I'm also expanding on the other East Asian cults like Eastern Lightning and the World Mission Society, Church of God.
So you said the greater LA area?
Greater Seattle area.
Yeah. Is there a lesser Seattle area?
There's a lesser Seattle area. Yeah.
Okay.
There's the Seattle and then the lesser Seattle.
Not as great Seattle area. Then there's the greater.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe there's the greatest Seattle area.
Hey, we won the Super Bowl. Pretty happy about that. So
yeah.
So Asterisk Me says that they come for the teaching and stay for the jokes.
Right.
I don't know if he means that we're the jokes or we have good jokes or both, maybe. Yeah, whatever.
Well, here we are.
Yeah, so I've really enjoyed getting to know Chris over the last, couple of years now, and seeing him grow in the faith. He had been in Shincheonji, and we did a webcast with him about a year ago. To kind of talk about that group and their infiltration. When we talked about doing this, we thought we need to do something about the Asian cults in general, because pastors who have very full plates most of the time cannot keep up with all of the things that are going on in culture for sure, and in the church even, as false teachers and false teaching sort of creep in around them. So we thought we'd talk about a few of them and glancing at least to say, here's groups to watch out for and why. I kind of go back to, predates Chris's time a bit, a Korean cult leader by the name of Myung Moon, whose first disciple came in the early 1950s to the U.S., He himself came and set up operations in 1965. And one of the things, he was interesting in this sense. What he did was go and made allegiance with conservatives.
Yeah.
Which kind of then gave him an introduction to other parts of those who are conservative, in other words, evangelicals to some degree. He's bought a newspaper, which I think it was the Post, Washington Post.
Oh, yeah. No, there was the, it's not the Post. The Post is still very, very liberal. It escapes me right now. It's a Washington paper, though.
Washington Times.
It's the Washington Times.
Might be the Times.
Washington Times, yeah. So he endeared himself through that to more conservatives. And the first time I saw him speak was obviously before he passed away.
Sometime before he died, yes.
It was, yeah. He wasn't a very good speaker.
Especially after he died. He was even worse.
Yeah, well, he was actually a better speaker after he died, I think. It was spoke in silence. But he had really made his bones in recruiting from university campuses and other things. Some of them were Christians that have been impacted and affected by the Moonies. And so that was pretty profound. But I heard him speak at an event when he and his wife, the mother and father of the cosmos, Jahan Moon and Reverend Moon, were there. And he started off having someone read from Jerry Falwell a letter extolling how good it was to have him out there in the battle for faith. We were shocked.
Which faith?
Why? Yeah, why would Jerry Falwell send anything like that? And so I and Eric Piment both made contact with Liberty University to find out from Jerry Falwell what on earth would have possessed him to do this. And his office wrote back and said, yes, indeed, he had written the letter because of his stand for religious freedom. But in the letter that he sent, there's a clear section that says, we do not agree with your theology, and explained why, which of course never made the light of day.
Go figure.
Right. So, and Reverend Myung Moon claimed that the Bible foretold his coming because Jesus talked about the lightning flashing from the east even to the west. So shall the coming of the Son of Man be. And he was from Korea in the east and came to the U.S. in the west. Voila, Bible prophecy fulfilled. And he is the second coming of Jesus. But Jesus had made a mistake. He accidentally got killed because he really was here to produce children that would be sinless from birth. And so Moon is taking his place. He is the return of Jesus.
He's the second advent.
He's the second advent. And he is going to produce sinless progeny. That really didn't work out well for him. But he did grow and he was quite powerful. Now, you alluded to him. I've heard this applied to us in the past, which I didn't know what it was at first. An OG, an original gangster. Now we have other groups that are kind of following his path of how to infiltrate conservatism and evangelicalism specifically.
Yeah, like here's a good example. A Chinese cult, Falun Gong, owns the newspaper Epoch Times. My parents are fairly staunch conservatives, and I remember visiting them. And when I visited them, they had an Epoch Times paper. I warned them about Falun Gong, and they threw it away. And then you also know they also show these things, these plays called Shen Yun. They say it's China before communism. Obviously, there's an appeal to many people and many Americans for that. And they actually have beautiful dance shows. However, these dance shows are oftentimes exploited members who aren't being fairly compensated. And what seems to be an innocent play turns out to be a sinister cult on the going on behind the scenes. And then for a lot of the, I refer to the Moonies as the OG Korean cult. There's really two Korean cults that I kind of consider to be the father and the main of the Korean cults would be Olive Tree and Park Tae-sun, where they had so many followers that it almost supplanted Protestant Christianity in South Korea at one point. And then there's also the Unification Church, which, they were successful overseas. And then now a lot of these, not only Korean cults, but even just in general, East Asian cults are following a similar playbook in order to grow and expand. And there's a new wave of East Asian cults that are making a real impact all over, and especially in the West. And understandably, I like to make the analogy, pastors have a lot of spinning plates. They have a lot of responsibilities. So understandably, they don't have the time to go through every single cult out there and know them inside out.
Right.
But I'm hoping that we can at least raise awareness so that they have an idea of what may or may not be going on.
Right. Now you have a slide. We're surely not going to get through everything in that slide.
Yeah.
But I think we want to start, because I think this is important. It's going to show you some numbers that people need to be aware of about how successful they are being at the moment.
Yep. So the three cults, East Asian cults that we're going to be focusing on are a lot less known, but they're starting to gain more traction. So there's a cult named Shincheonji, the group I left. They already are claiming that 1,400 churches globally have been fully consumed and converted to SEJ. Their approach is that they'll infiltrate your church and they'll plant someone pretending to be a pious Christian, and then they'll try to win over the leadership. This happened in Austin, Texas, actually, where a lady faithfully attended a church for a full year, won over the department leader's women's department, and then they tried to recruit the rest of the elders. But thankfully, the elders understood cults well enough that they knew, wait, this is heretical teachings, and called them out. You can watch this interview on Great Light Studios and with Pastor Rusty. But then there's other cults, the World Mission Society Church of God, or God the Mother. So in either 1998 or 97, they were only in a single country. And then in 11 years, they grew to over 175 countries. They're claiming 4 million members right now. And it took the LDS, over 100 years for this to actually be accomplished? And then Eastern Lightning. This is another up-and-coming group. They're heavily recruiting online. They also kind of make the appeal, for context, this is a Chinese cult. They believe that Jesus returned using a new name or new flesh of a Chinese lady who allegedly is in New York right now. And they are heavily recruiting online, giving off free non-denominational Bible studies. Another sinister part about this group is, while they were legitimately persecuted by the CCP, they're using that as a catalyst to now enter Western churches so that then they can talk and speak with Western pastors saying, hey, we're brothers in Christ. We're being persecuted. Can you take us in? And then through there, that's how they also will begin to recruit.
Okay. So they're filtrating the church that way. Now, you have, like in Shincheonji, your next slide has front names, so people know that they don't always show up and say, yes, we're Shincheonji. They are deceptive would be probably the best way to describe it.
Yeah, like one of them would be like Houston Christian Fellowship, for example. Doesn't that sound very Christian? I mean, hey, who wouldn't want fellowship? And then there's other entities as well, like, I don't know, Living Bread Ministries, Word and Life School of Theology, DC Seminary. Like, these guys actually have a full-fledged seminary front group where they offer it to pastors from within the U.S. and all over the world. Like when our friend Steve infiltrated SEJ for that year, what happened is that one of the head instructors was in India. This head instructor had a PhD in psychology or biology, I forgot what. And he would approach these people in India who are impoverished and saying, hey, I'm a doctor, or I have a doctorate. Why don't you come and listen to my theology spiel? So they would recruit Indian pastors that way. This is a serious thing. And we're also seeing this even in the US, where people are understandably, seminaries are very expensive.
Right.
I mean, how much is it? Like at least 20,000 USD a year. Now imagine you being even an American pastor, an Indian pastor, or a Filipino pastor, or whoever, praying to God, like, hey, God, I only want to do your will. Can you help me out? And then this free seminary, international school comes up to you and says, hey, we are they may or may not claim to be an accredited institution. They have this thing called wisdom of hiding where it's okay, where they redefine what a lie is. And then they'll present themselves to the pastor as a Christian ministry. This is a serious threat. And then on top of that, online, there are Instagram accounts, social media accounts, posing as Christians, non-denominational, offering free Bible studies. So if you were approached, or are you a pastor who was approached by SEJ, things to look out for include, is your Bible study making an emphasis on the parables in the book of Revelation? And are they implicitly inferring, especially at the start, that you need to understand the parables in order to truly understand the second coming of Christ? And sometimes they'll be even more explicit and say, in order to be saved, then this is a Shincheonji Bible study.
Okay.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, so how can we help our viewers and listeners? I mean, it's one thing to understand the counterfeit, but there are all different kinds of counterfeits. So
absolutely,
what would be a sign of authenticity, a sign of genuineness if somebody comes and is trying to lead, offer you a Bible study? What would make it actually be legitimate?
Okay, rule number 1, Google it. Absolutely Google. And if there's nothing that's showing up, that's the first red flag. Second thing, this is actually what my dad did when I tried to recruit him into SEJ, funny enough. All he asked was, when he was at the event, he just asked, do you guys have a statement of faith? Do you guys have, what church are you affiliated with? And the entire time, I was playing hopscotch with him, essentially in a metaphorical way of like trying to weave and dodge from answering the question. He just said, do you guys have a website? No. And even if they do have a website, if there's nothing else about it online, they may try to say it's a small ministry. If there are no other backers that can vet this system, that should be a red flag. Because think about it. What do you drink a random glass of clear liquid if a stranger gave it to you on the side of the street? I mean, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
So all the more reason why it's like, now this is our spiritual life.
So like, back in the late 70s, early 80s, I was exposed to a particular multi-level marketing company that was kind of like the mother of all such MLM companies. You remember it well, Don, don't you?
Is it Amway?
Yep.
Yeah, because they're still around.
Oh, they are. And they
I ran into them recently.
Whole panoply of these organizations. And after my first exposure to it, my wife and I, we just, for our own personal reasons, decided not to get into it. I don't want to diss the whole thing. I'm just saying, I know some people who felt that they did very well with it. I don't know anyone who became a millionaire doing it, but I understand there have been people who become millionaires. And all I know is that, when it was always presented to me as a business opportunity, right? And this was the late 70s, early 80s. The economy was horrible.
Yeah.
People were looking for any way, everybody was working a full-time job and coming home exhausted. And here's somebody who said, I spend 2-3 hours a week and I'm pulling down an extra $1,000 a month, and that's, for me, that would have been a lot more than my full-time job paid. And then you go to the presentation, you listen to it, and you see what's involved, and suddenly the kind of, for me at least, the gleam wore off, and for my wife, and we decided, no, it's not for us. But we didn't know anything about it until we actually went to the meeting, right? So, and then we had to have somebody come into our home, blah blah blah. So then my radar's up. People, somebody came up to me at work and said, Ron, I heard the other day you were talking about how expensive everything is, and I was wondering if you might be interested in this business opportunity. And when I sensed the same approach, I said, "Does this have anything to do with Amway?" And immediately, and this has happened more than once since then. The next question, they didn't answer the question. They didn't give me an answer. Another thing I forgot to mention is they never advertise themselves as Amway.
Yep. Deceptive recruiting.
They have the Double Diamond Corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They have the a lot of these company names that they came up with had the word diamond in them, but there were others too. So they might drop the name. It's some name I never heard of before, and then the approach seemed similar. So, does this have anything to do with Amway? The next thing they said was, "What have you heard about Amway?"
Yep.
And it's like they want to know. Well, I have actually been to an actual meeting, and I've actually had people in my house. I know something about Amway. Well, can I call you after work? They still want to give it a shot, and it's like, why can't you just be straightforward?
Right, and that's where honestly, there are different types of cults. There's religious cults, there's business cults, political cults, all these other things, right? And one of the key indicator drivers would be the heavy use of deception. Jesus talks about this, as you guys know, Matthew 7:15, a wolf in sheep's clothing. So Shincheonji and even Eastern Lightning would approach you as like, hey, we're a non-denominational Bible study. So does the World Mission Society Church of God. But then when you really get into the granular details, they have a completely different gospel.
Right.
They have a completely different Jesus. Walter Martin and even the Bible warns about if we were to present to you a different Jesus than what we have shown you.
Yeah.
And even with the Amway people, it's like, hey, we're just they're preying on the idea that like, wouldn't you want to not work your 9 to 5 and have financial independence? When I ran into them in Seattle.
Well, there's been other groups preceding these. We mentioned the Moonies. Some years back, Luis Palau was doing a crusade in Chicago. I found it was their campaign.
Those are the days.
And I was asked by the Palau organization if we could have individuals to kind of help vet the volunteers because they were concerned there might be some infiltration going on. And I was there, I don't know, an hour and a half. And the main ones that were serving everybody were University Bible Fellowship, a cult. They were like involved in everything, every aspect of this. And so I went to leadership and I said, well, what are we going to do? They're doing all these things because I can't tell you what you're going to do, but I tell you what you should do. You should thank them for their coming, and you should ask them to excuse themselves because they are not here to help with the Luis Palau organization in sharing the gospel. They are there to recruit to University Bible Fellowship. They have a different goal. Nice people, but they have a different goal.
Yep, exactly. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Now, Don, I have here, or attempted to share, this is an Eastern Lightning Bible study invite. I think when your audience sees one of the invites, they'll be able to kind of see them all. Are you able to share that?
Well, we have too many on here, so I have to somehow, you have to turn your other one off.
Yeah, sure. Let me just go ahead and I'll just remove it from the stage. There you go.
Okay.
I have to admit, when I hear the name Eastern Lightning, I think I'm going to be introduced to a bottle of sake.
Man. Sake. Nice.
Would you like some Eastern Lightning? Yes. What year is it?
To no surprise, to no surprise, they don't use the name Eastern Lightning. They may use Church of Almighty God and other front group names. But here's something that a person on one of the subreddits that I run kind of posted saying, hey, is this Shincheonji? And the community correctly pointed out, no, it's another cult that does the same thing, which is ultimately, hey, how do you know that you're going to be ready for the Lord's return? Again, very Christian, very sounding, wow, look at this. There's a picture of Jesus in the Lamb. Now, one thing I kind of want to point out is Eastern Lightning, Church of Almighty God, they have this like yellow hue to a lot of their art. So for me personally, whenever I see that, because I've also been invited to this Bible study, I can kind of tell almost immediately by that yellow hue, okay, yeah, this is probably them. And also, I mean, always for me personally, whenever I get invited to a random Bible study on any social media, normally for me, that's a red flag. So you can kind
Yeah.
of see, So again, hey, picture of Jesus holding a lamb. What's the worst that can happen? And they believe that Jesus returned and using the flesh of, a Chinese lady. So, my friend Mitch, he actually had an infiltration of this group, and he kind of calls them the Timu version of the World Mission Society Church of God.
Oh,
Team, yeah, okay, low cut rate,
Yeah,
bargain
pretty
basement,
much.
yeah.
Yeah. But again, these guys are growing at 3 to 4 million strong.
Hmm.
So,
That is pretty big, I mean, for a typical denomination, I mean, we have the Big E Southern Baptist. I think they're still over 10 million.
Mhm.
But then the next one down is,
right.
oh,
So,
actually, the LMCS is huge too. I didn't realize that, but it's not as big as the Southern Baptist. So,
right.
okay. So
So-
Eastern Lightning is 3 to 4 million followers,
Right.
and published a handbook on how to infiltrate and destroy a church from within.
Yep.
So they have training materials on how to do this.
So does Shincheonji. Yeah. So in SEJ, especially, they call it moving a mountain. And same with Eastern Lightning. So the idea, SEJ has done this a few times in Korea, where they actually take over the leadership, and they almost got away with it in Austin, Texas. They would take over the leadership and get enough elder positions, for example, and then turn on the pastor of the church. And then by turning on the pastor of the church, they may spread rumors, they may try to discredit his character, etc. And then the next stage is that then they would have another Shincheonji member who's who's also a part of the elder board, and then they would vote him in. And this has allegedly happened in Korea. And again, that's what they're trying to do overseas as well, allegedly as well. And then
Right.
now for Eastern Lightning, so this is actually kind of scary. They actually have history, according to the Christian Research Institute, of kidnapping and abducting pastors in China. And I believe in the slide deck, they kidnapped and trapped like 32 people in, I believe, Singapore. And so they're a little bit more extreme. Now, they're not going to do that overseas. And to kind of play devil's advocate, the CCP, for example, to be fair, like they made Eastern Lightning illegal. And as we know, the Communist Party can torment people, torture people. So from their view, it is truly a life or death situation that if someone were to leave the group and, report them, then they could actually be rounded up and thrown in jail, right? And this isn't communist China. But it doesn't justify torturing people, kidnapping them. There's reports of maiming a person's ear. I read in a CRI report, there's a Christian pastor in China who continued speaking out against them, and allegedly he was beaten and he could no longer walk because they beat him so badly with metal rods. And yet he still said, no, I need to protect the flock, and I will continue speaking out.
Wow.
So talk about bravery.
Yeah, that is bravery. Commitment to the flock. That is amazing.
Right.
Well, and each of them have kind of a different view of Jesus, as I understand it. So, and one of our sponsors addresses that kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about that in just a second here, because it can be a problem of style over substance, and sometimes you really need to emphasize style over substance. And if anybody would know that, it's our friends in this company who ask the question, do you cringe when the Christians you hang out with try to introduce Jesus to your non-Christian friends? Well, you can say goodbye to the days when your church's Jesus was a source of social embarrassment. Now even your church can keep pace with the latest fashion-forward trends in spirituality. Introducing the Designer Jesus Collection. These amazing new Jesus styles are hitting church runways in the most exclusive Jesus fashion shows at churches near you. You don't want to miss Yoga Jesus, Hipster Jesus, Buddy Jesus, Socialist Jesus, Mormon Jesus, and of course, Muslim Jesus. At Designer Jesus Collection fashion shows, you'll find a Jesus you'll be proud to introduce to your most sophisticated, cutting edge friends and acquaintances. Please observe the attendance requirements, cost of admission, your eternal soul, required attire, not retired acquire, required attire, semi-formal. All proceeds benefit His Royal Majesty of the Kingdom of Darkness. The Designer Jesus Collection, London, Paris, Rome, New York, Salt Lake City, and coming to a church runway near you. So, there you
go.
So yeah, just to talk about the different Jesuses. So Shincheonji, let's start with them. They deny that Jesus is God. Depending on the part of the world or region you're in, some regions teach that He pre-existed, but most regions do not preach that Jesus pre-existed and came into existence at His virgin birth. So despite them trying to say that they're unified, there's a lot of division and there's a lot of contradicting, beliefs within their own system. But, you can almost make an argument that they have many denominations in a sense. Right. But anyways, and then for the World Mission Society Church of God, they believe that Jesus returned using a new flesh, Ahnsahnghong, or a new name, and that they have a modalist view of God. So they have God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That's Ahnsahnghong. That's the new name, and it's a modalist. And then they actually add a second God, God the Mother, and that you need to believe in both in order to be saved. They'll try to kind of use the marriage argument of like, well, there's two gods, but there's still one because of marriage, right? And then for Eastern Lightning, there is another one. There's another lady who claims to be Jesus incarnate, and it's Yang Xiangbin. And so they also have a very similar view as the World Mission Society Church of God, where it's modalist view, and they deny the Trinity, where there's three persons, one God. So each of these groups have a different Jesus altogether, and yet they have the audacity to go up to a Christian and say, hey, we believe the same Jesus as you guys. We're on the same team. And yet it's like, okay, so hold on a second. While we can have our disagreements on secondary issues and peripheral issues, we have to have the basics. I always like to make the analogy. It's like if you're going to, are you even within the same stadium as us? Meaning, who is God? What is the Trinity? How are you saved? But these guys are completely on another planet. And as you can tell by just the definition of who Christ is alone. What do you think, Don? I'm sure you've ran into these groups before, other groups that are very similar.
Oh, of course, sure. Yeah, the Mormons do the same thing. Mm-hmm. We believe in Jesus. You believe in Jesus. Therefore, we're both Christians, except they're not the same Jesus. Salvation is through organizational affiliation. You have to be Mormon. And you are going to become a god yourself on your own planet with many of Mormon wives that will be there to populate your new planet. That's not even close to what we find in Scripture.
Yep.
No, absolutely not. And then when it comes to, you could say evangelism now too, each group, they have their own shtick. They have their own thing. So let's go through it. Like there's the pipeline of SEJ. What they start out with is a Bible basics. What the Bible basics is kind of like they do very normal sounding topics. How is the Bible composed? Prophecy, fulfillment, moral teachings, and then history. And then they go through the importance of needing to know, or better yet, they ask with a very simple question. Why did the Pharisees and the teachers of the law miss Jesus? A lot of these groups also make an emphasis on that too. So this is, this is a very common theme. A lot of these groups, they really like to play on the idea and the very solid question, why did the Pharisees miss the Messiah? Now, female aspect seems to be predominant Oriental religion. Yeah, that's true. So my friend and I, Pastor Yang, we did a video series on the history of the Korean cults on Great Light Studios and my channel, Exposing the Cults. Highly recommend that anyone who's interested to watch that series, because we go into great detail as to why are there so many Korean cults. And I bring it up because one of the aspects is that there's a divine goddess in the history of Korea.
Okay. So they're bringing their culture into their supposedly Christian beliefs, basically.
Right. And don't get me wrong, of course, Christianity is a universal religion.
Right.
However, even though it's a universal religion, we shouldn't be mixing shamanism into it. We shouldn't, you know what I mean? It's okay to have different opinions, whether it's political or whatever. By the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What really matters, though, is just like, okay, when you're clearly bringing in shamanism and mountain spirits and etc., I think that should be a red flag, guys.
Yeah.
Well, it should be, and we'd like to think, well, this is kind of a first. It's never really happened before, but you can't really do that. If you even read the Old Testament, just in glancing, what you discover is the nation of Israel had a clear, I'm God, there is no other, there's no gods before me, none after me, I don't know of any. I mean, it's pretty clear. And they go, okay, got it. So what do? They start worshiping other idols. They never reject God fully. They just incorporate these other idols into what they're doing.
Kind of like the Asherah poles, right? In the Old Testament. Yeah. Actually, we were talking about the whole female deity. I mean, actually, this is really nothing new. I mean, isn't there a queen of heaven that was like an abomination in Jeremiah?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's new and yet it's not. I mean, there's really nothing new under the sun here if you kind of think about it, But it is still important because even though it's nothing new under the sun, we're still, these groups are growing so fast, we still need to kind of give them attention. So for the pipeline, essentially SEJ, they have a Bible study. They have it where they have in this Bible study 6 to 12 months. They make an emphasis on the parables, secrets of the kingdom of heaven, and then the book of Revelation, which they think was mostly fulfilled in South Korea and Gwacheon, and it's starting from 1966 to 1980, or 1984, really. Now, of course, they're not going to tell you this up front. And then another important thing is at least half the class members of this Bible study, they are current members pretending to be new members so that they can spy and report on you. What does that mean? So not only will they befriend you, but the whole idea is that they're going to what they call buy your field or buy your heart. And anything that you tell them will be reported in a group chat without your consent.
Yeah.
And then so if you say anything, have any doubts, it will be reported in the group chat. And then the head instructor will then most likely talk about it. And you'll be thinking, wow, it must be from God or something, even though it might be a few eyebrow raising type of moments. Now, for the World Mission Society Church of God, with them, they don't do church infiltrations, but they do door-to-door preaching. And they're actually they're a lot more upfront than Shincheonji and even Eastern Lightning. Low bar here we're talking about, okay? Very low bar. So I got to give WMSCOG props, WMSCOG or World Mission Society props for what they do, kind of. They sometimes will go up to you and say, hey, have you heard of God the Mother? That's normally their hook and sink, right? But most of the time they try to say, hey, we're doing a Bible study. Why don't you come over? Similar play, but their Bible studies are actually significantly shorter, meaning it's not going to be a 6 to 12 month sale. They'll try to get you in within the first few iterations. What they normally do is they make an emphasis on fear, on the world's going to end, and, have you kept Sabbath? Have you kept Passover? And then they'll start to kind of trickle in the idea of needing to pray and that God has a new name, Ahnsahnghong. They split the eras, so to speak, into three main eras: the age of the Father, the age of the Son, and the age of the Holy Spirit. But this time it's the age of the Holy Spirit will be Ahnsahnghong. And so in each age, there'll be a new name that you need to call upon for salvation. And that's how they incorporate the Ahnsahnghong guy. Now, for Eastern Lightning, they actually do something very similar as well. And it's there's the age of law, which is Jehovah, the age of grace, which is Jesus, and the age of the kingdom, which is God being incarnated into the Chinese lady. And so, yet again, in order for you to be saved and receive salvation, you need to believe that she is Jesus incarnate. The interesting thing about Eastern Lightning, though, is that they essentially argue that Paul is in hell because he betrayed, and that the Bible is corrupt, and that they have a new Bible text that supersedes the biblical text, right? So this is superseded by the Yang Xiangbin's utterances, which is the word appears in flesh.
Sounds like Inspector Clouseau. Oh, the old Bible's corrupt ploy.
All I know is when I hear the question, have you ever heard of God the Mother? I have the same reaction as when somebody asks me, have you ever heard of Dweezil Zappa? That's Frank Zappa's son, or Moon Unit Zappa, his daughter.
Okay.
It just made me laugh. It's Dweezil Zappa. You're already the last name Zappa is funny. You're going to name your kid Dweezil. So, God the Mother. It's just I have the same like humor.
Right.
Laugh
And
reflex.
to be fair, I think that with the World Mission Society, because they're a little bit more upfront, they are a little bit better in their apologetics compared to Shincheonji or Eastern Lightning, because they actually had to defend their faith a little bit more frequently compared to the other two groups, where they try to kind of, rope you in. Like Eastern Lightning has like an eight-step class, an 8-step process, and they normally don't really identify the female Christ thing until much later into the indoctrination process. So again, one of the things I always like to say is, for the most part, these groups will not be upfront. These groups will instead try to reel you in with common ground. They'll try to use Christian-sounding languages. Shouldn't be surprising anyone in the audience here. And then over time, when they get more of their emotional hooks into you, that's when they'll start introducing the concepts of, for Shincheonji, the promised pastor, or a female Christ, or God the Mother, depending on the part of the world you're at for WMSCOG.
Okay. So, salvation on the church. What about the church?
So almost all of them basically say that the church is Babylon or apostate in some regard. So yeah, so for Shincheonji, it's that the truth was shortly lost because after Jesus ascended and the disciples passed away, what they believe is that the Bible is essentially encoded with the secrets of the kingdom of heaven, or metaphors or parables, and that the true understanding was lost when the book of Revelation was given to the Apostle John in a sealed state. Sealed means sealed the parables, encoded with parables. Then for World Mission Society Church of God, they really make more of an emphasis on the need of keeping Passover. So they'll make the argument around the Council of Nicaea, when the Passover was abolished, then they need to have someone who comes in the new name, Ahnsahnghong, to restore this Passover. So some of their circular proof texts to show that Ahnsahnghong is second coming Jesus or second advent is because they believe that he restored Passover and a few other things like the root of David prophecy and other things, which we don't need to get into, to eventually say, see, this is how Ahnsahnghong is second coming Christ. Then for Eastern Lightning, you quoted the verse, the lightning from the east and the west. They believe that that is proof text to show that they are the fulfillment of second coming Christ. So it's a lot of I would say Shincheonji and World Mission Society Church of God, in my opinion, they have a more thorough theology, while Eastern Lightning, they really only repeat like how Jesus will return like a thief in the night, and that the lightning is as far as the east and west verse. They kind of repeat that a few times, and then they start going into their new Bible.
As Laura Ingram would ask, what's the angle? Like many cults, really, when you get right down to it, in my opinion at least, Jehovah's Witnesses exist to support the lifestyle of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society.
Right.
That's my opinion. They have really nice digs in New York. They've just moved into a new place. They're doing pretty well. I mean, they don't maybe spend as much money as Myung Moon did, but they're living comfortably. The same, I would say, goes for the Mormon hierarchy. They also get a lot of social prestige out of being apostles and whatnot. There's always an angle. So, what angle these people, are they living lavish lifestyles, or do they get, are they in it for the fame, the notoriety?
So you have to remember, these people believe what they preach. In order to be a good salesman or a good saleswoman, you have to believe.
I'm not talking about the lower echelon.
I know, I'm talking about the higher ups. I'm talking about the
higher
leaders.
ups. Okay.
I'm talking about the leaders of each of these groups.
Mm-hmm.
They do believe in what they're selling. Because you have to remember, there's a spirit of deception. That's what the Bible talks about, right?
And I wouldn't doubt that. I wouldn't doubt, for instance, at the upper level of Mormons, and there's part of the deception is self-deception, and
Exactly.
the self-deception boils down to hypocrisy. It's a self-deception that allows you, even though it's some, people talk about the imposter syndrome.
Right.
I think a lot of people suppress their imposter syndrome way down.
All right, sure.
And they start to believe their own press.
Absolutely.
Even though there's a part of them that knows that they're not really what they say they are. And there's a motivation. I mean, you get certain perks.
Sure. So let's go ahead and talk about the historical thing then, both in China and also in South Korea, to kind of led to a lot of these groups. Because Falun Gong and then started in the 1990s, ended in the they started in the early 90s, but by the end of the decade, they claimed to have 40 to 80 million people in their group. Now, I'm bringing that up because Walter Martin said that, especially for the Christian cults, they're the unpaid tolls of the church, right?
Right.
So Eastern Lightning, World Mission Society Church of God, and Shincheonji, what do all three of these groups have in common? Hey, we have a free, non-denominational Bible study, and we're willing to talk about eschatology. Maybe you guys are going to a good church. I mean, I know I am too. But when was the last time that a church talked about the book of Revelation? From what I've seen, and this is my experience, a lot of churches avoid the book of Revelation eschatology because they're afraid of offending their congregation, because there are different views of the book of Revelation. So what was appealing for me was the fact that, finally, for Shincheonji, there's a group of Bible nerds in their what appears to be a systematic theology going from Genesis to Revelation talking about this. Now, same thing with World Mission Society Church of God. I was talking about my friend Mitch. He was a former leader of WMSCOG in North America. What he said was that he would be able to run laps around normally 95% of Christians when it came to the Bible. Now, what did they get out of it for the very top? Well, you're right. A lot of the leaders are living in luxury. Now, for Eastern Lightning, there are alleged rumors that the female Christ already passed away in COVID. There are the rumors. We don't know. We can't confirm. But I know that Man-hee, for example, he was found guilty of embezzlement and millions of won and dollars and all this stuff. He allegedly has like a yacht. And I know Zahng Gil-jah is definitely making a lot of money, and she lives in a very luxurious lifestyle as well, allegedly as well, right? So they do get that aspect. They do get their egos kind of satisfied that, hey, I am God's chosen one. But when you're looking at the history, like the history of the Korean cults, a lot of the times, and even in China, there's a lot of severe poverty. And so when you're reading these very symbolic books like the Book of Revelation, and you're seeing all the chaos of the world, a lot of times these people who are also influenced by the cults that are running around them are saying, well, look, all these events are happening. It must be about, this must be mapped onto the Book of Revelation of some kind, or second coming Christ.
My wife and I were in a group that was very cultish. And I would say that here we had a guy who was not motivated by money or sex, but he was motivated by power, just the power to get people to do what he wanted them to do. I think he really got off on that.
Sure.
So that could be the angle for many of these leaders.
Maybe.
And I think it is, even if you have the others, really, you can't let go of the power.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a multifaceted approach to this. I agree. I definitely think like power is a big part of it. Like, I remember talking to a former member who was pretty high up in the chain, and one of the biggest things that was very difficult in leaving was that, hey, he was losing his prestige, he was losing his status, and then he had to start over.
Yeah. Well, like early in my Christian life, I used to puzzle over the place in the book of Galatians where Paul talked about these false brethren who came to spy out their freedom in Christ for the purpose of enslaving them,
Mm.
And the reason that kind of confused me was because I just assumed and that people's main motivation was what they believed. And so if they really believed that you had to be circumcised to be saved, as these Judaizers claimed,
Right.
that was really what it was all about. Where does this power motivation, power to enslave motivation come in? I could not relate to it until my wife and I became victims of it for about 5.5 years. And now on the other side of that experience, it's like, oh yeah. Do I think he really believed what he was saying? Yeah. Everybody has doubts, even people who seem to be very strong. So he might have entertained them. And I think he did wrestle at times with what he was doing, but he couldn't stop. He was addicted to it. He was, and it was about the power. It was about the control. So what did these Judaizers get out of it? I don't know of any of it. I don't read, at least in the New Testament, that any of them became fabulously wealthy, although that may have happened.
Maybe.
It seems unlikely that they were getting, any kind of sexual immorality out of it, although that could have happened.
So, you know how Satan likes to impersonate the God's kingdom, right?
Right.
That is one of the telltale signs, like Reverend Moon, the family, and they believe that the physical salvation is bringing forth the kingdom here on earth, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing where like to steelman what you're saying, Ron, there is a power aspect play that I cannot deny or ignore. No, of course, we both agree that they do definitely believe they drink their own Kool-Aid, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
But it's just the idea of like, hey, I am bringing forth the kingdom of heaven here on earth. I am the spokesperson on behalf of God, the promised pastor, or God the Mother, or Christ in flesh, or whatever. I mean, I can see that absolutely playing into someone's what we call delusion.
Like you mentioned, they drink their own Kool-Aid. Well, Jim Jones drank his own Kool-Aid, or maybe he was shot. I forget, one of the two. Who is the guy, the head of the Heaven's Gate cult?
Applewhite.
Applewhite, yeah. He had a short name that he went by. But anyways, yeah, they believe it to the point that they carry out their own suicides in a suicide cult. But I think that what they really get off on is the power of knowing that all these other people are doing it too.
Right. It's kind of like Steve Hassan's like bite model, and there's also the idea of being isolated, and that you're on, I like to call it like echo chamber. And so you're going to be heavily influenced by the people around you. And if your entire community, your entire identity is wrapped up in this, so it makes sense, that's how brainwashing and indoctrination works, right?
Yeah. Well, the bite model, behavior, information, thought, and emotion, which is really another way of saying it goes after the whole person.
Right.
Yeah. Intellect, emotion, will.
Community. Yeah. It's like, and that's the thing. It's just like, okay, so why are these groups growing so fast as a body of Christ? Now, listen, I'm not here to lecture a pastor. Absolutely not. And I hope this does not come off as that. And I know there's a lot of pastors that are doing a great job. And even for myself, what I can do better is what can I do to maybe make that community? And that's why, a little plug in here. I'm working with Pastor Yang on Bio Vaccine Center, because, and what you guys are doing, like Don, you're talking about Emner and doing Emner and things like that. Doing these things to fill in the void that's being kind of left behind. I understand why maybe a pastor may be hesitant on speaking on the book of Revelation, because everyone has, there's different eschatologies out there, but maybe offering like awareness of like Bible study fellowship, which is a legitimate, Christian normal Bible study. They actually went through the book of Revelation and they presented all the major views pretty fairly, right? And just kind of saying like, hey, well, maybe this church is too small, or maybe we can't offer these classes. Here are legitimate alternatives, not to the church, but classes that have been vetted and verified.
Well,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it almost does. One of the things
Okay.
that happens, though, when I think about making the book of Revelation the central thing that we're going to do to recruit people is
Yeah.
you're using the dramatic to bring people in without really discipling and training them into the faith.
That too, yeah.
Right. See, that is an aspect of biblical teaching, but it is not the primary aspect even of biblical teaching. So,
yeah. No, that's a good point.
Right. So Ron and I would have a different take on the book of Revelation. We would both, though, say it's an important document in church history. It should be taught well, but it isn't not the essential doctrine.
Absolutely.
In the faith, there's other more important things.
Absolutely. And that's what I mean, though. It's just like, that's why I'm saying, like, for those who are curious, because curiosity killed the cat, first of all. And for me, I was just kind of curious, you know, like when I was going through the SCJ Bible study, admittedly, I didn't know it was SCJ at the time. I was like, oh, this is cool. This is a new take, you know?
Well, yeah,
Very new take.
It's kind of like, to me, the book of Revelation is kind of like going to Six Flags over Missouri or whatever.
Yeah.
You want to go there because you want to get on the rides and you want to be scared on the rides, but you don't want to think that you're actually going to die there. So you want to go through the book of Revelation to figure out what's going to happen and how can I prepare for what's going to happen, and you're okay with getting scared through that, but you don't really want to believe it's true.
Right.
So it becomes something that you do. I don't know, it's sort of a macabre entertainment in some way, because it draws you in. But there's other things that are more important, really.
Right. Like, who is Jesus, right?
Yeah, like, who is Jesus? That's like a really important thing. What he did for you. I'm reading a book by a deconstructor, former pastor, and as I read it, I'm thinking, I'm kind of empathizing with his struggles, but in the process of him deconstructing from a very authoritarian Christianity, sort of a Bill Gothard-esque type Christianity, what he's done is he's reduced his view of God to being, maybe holy, but not as holy as he thinks he is. That we need to realize that we are as holy as God is. We need to understand that, and that Jesus came to tell us that we have to love ourselves in order to be able to love others. And churches aren't teaching that, so we need to have a church that will teach us that. And then, as you're listening to that, you're going, "Oh yeah, you're right. My church never taught me that." Well, maybe he's right. Well, there's a reason they don't teach that, because it's not in the Bible. Right? Take it out of this. Gwen Shamblin started in the mid 1990s, Way Down Workshop. By 2000, she was in 60,000 churches across 30,000 churches across 60 denominations. And the thing that you kept hearing is, I never heard this taught in my church. Well, the reason you didn't hear what she's teaching in your church is because it isn't biblical. She made it up. And you discover she teaches, well, Jesus never claimed to be God. Well, that's like Jehovah's Witness. So how did she get there? Because nobody paid attention to what she was teaching until she had infiltrated these churches and has 1 million followers at $105 a piece. $100 million she had from this adventure. Nobody really caught on to it until Ron and I did a little expose on it, which is interesting because we thought, well, no one's going to pay attention. We wrote a press release about our conversation with her. Christianity Today picked it up within about an hour or two. They called her to verify what we said, and she agreed with that is what she said. And then she made another statement that women don't care about doctrine, they just want to lose weight. And Christianity quoted her on that.
Wow.
Which infuriated quite a number of women who said, we want her out of our church today.
And really, that's another thing too, though. You don't need to be a subject matter expert on all these obscure cults. It's impossible to keep up. I mean, I do this for fun. I'm not getting paid. This is for fun. I'm doing it for the love of the game. But with that said, all you have to know is they don't believe in the same Jesus as us. Red flag. Hey, if someone were to offer you a free Bible study seminary, there's an old saying, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If those two general principles were applied, and like we were talking about earlier, just like, really pressing on like what my dad did when I tried to recruit him. Hey, statement of faith. Who are you guys? Who's Jesus?
Yeah.
I would say that would actually save like 90% of people.
Well, and there are good resources out there. So if any pastors are listening, for example, they could contact Midwest Christian Outreach. If we don't have a fix on a particular group, because we don't have a fix on everyone, we usually can track them down within an hour or two, and get you some good resources. You can contact Chris, and his contact information is in the description. There are more and more apologetics type ministries. They need to become better known. You can contact Evangelical Ministries to Non-Christian Religions, EMNR, emnr.org. There's quite a few ministries there that do a number of different things. So there's good resources out there to help you along the way. You don't have to try to do it yourself, because not every pastor is going to be able to know everything. So, all right. And with that, we're going to come back with Chris at some future time, because this is important stuff. And we're talking about doing a short series a little later in the spring, probably, on our Tuesday night study group for about 4 weeks on these groups. So kind of keep an eye open. We'll talk about that.
Sounds good.
Ron, would you care to walk us out of here?
Let's give credit to whom credit is due. Our resident cult leader profiler is Neil before me. Our wardrobe manager is See How It Fits You. Culinary services are provided by Chef Ham and Cheese. Our tinfoil hat provisioner is Just In Case. Jehovah's Witnesses coverage comes from Armageddon and The Opposer. Our Mormon archives manager is Polygamous. Our liberal denominations bureau chief is Lucy Goosey. Our transgender issues coverage comes from Ben-Hur. Special correspondent for cults based on the Hindenburg disaster and flying turkeys, Ode to Humanity. Our fact-checking supervisor is Joe Leg. Pulling technical assistance comes through Murky Research. Our legal advisors are at the law firm of Dewey, Cheatham & Howe. Our grievance resolution director is Giovanna Pisami. Our director of private assurance is wiretapping, and original idea sourcing comes from Drew A. Blank. The Unknown Webcast is a production of Midwest Christian Outreach, Inc. in cooperation with Emergency Manicure Productions, both of whom are solely responsible for this content, although you will never be able to prove that in a court of law.
Never happen.
Ain't gonna happen.
All right. See you all next week.
See you guys. Thanks for having me.